Everyone, today we're going to see how to onboard Mapar into Docker DC, and I am running Docker DC out of Google Public Cloud, as we can see at the moment. I have two nodes running in the cloud. One is called Docker 1, which is going to be our master, and Docker 2 is going to be our worker for Docker DC. Let's quickly log in into UCP, and from here I'm going to show you that we have the two nodes mentioned before. Alright, and we have as well no containers running at the moment. So to onboard Mapar, what I will do is I'm going to run an Ansible playbook, which I call mapar.yaml, and this playbook is going to quickly bring up the controller, and then it's going to wait for about 2 minutes to let the controller start and settle, and then it's going to kick in and trigger the data node, which is going to run it in the worker node. Okay, let's quickly take a look to the images. So I have two images preloaded already. I am not using DTR at the moment. There is no Docker trusted registry, so everything is hosted at the moment in my local machines. So this is the image for the controller in Mapar, and this is the data node image. I have the two nodes like we saw in Google Public Cloud. Like I mentioned before, Docker 1 is my manager and Docker 2 is going to be the worker. And finally, this is very important to highlight, these are the networks that we use in Docker DC. Most of them are default networks, but I have created this particular overlay network that I am calling overnet in this segment 10090. Okay, and this is the overlay network that we're going to use to the Mapar connectivity across nodes. Okay, what I will do now is let me quickly connect to my container, the controller container, and let's take a look at the console to see if the Mapar is already up and running. Okay, inside the logs directory there is one file that we are very interested in, which is the init audit file. So let me just take that file, and we are going to see some errors which are going to happen whilst the cluster is trying to reach consistency. This one is going to take about 2 minutes, which is pretty much the time that we are taking for the playbook to sleep before we start launching the data node. Okay, let's just give it a few more minutes. Like we can see here, it's already triggered in the data node container, and we can see that our cluster hit consistency at the end. Okay, so what I will do is let's just quickly take a look at the playbook, the one that I use. From here I can see that I am creating some definitions on the ports that we want to present in our Docker 1 server. So our Docker 1 server is going to present port 9000, which is equivalent to 8443 in the container, which is the one present in the Mapar console. So let's grab the IP address from our Docker 1, the public IP address, and let's quickly just go to port 9000 and see if we can hit the Mapar. It should be running on HTTPS. Alright. Let's log in with user Mapar. We will need to accept the license agreement from Mapar. And we can see that we have already two nodes running, our controller and our data 1 node. Okay, and they are coming from two different nodes hosted in Google Public Cloud. So we can see from here that we have some orange alarms, and the reason why we have these alarms is because I don't have any enterprise license at the moment, so I cannot run the Spark History server or the NFS gateway. We can go ahead and manually start them to get rid of the alarm, so we should be able to see everything in green status, but it's going to come down eventually again because I don't have an enterprise license. So let's try to make the demo a bit more interesting, and what I will do is I'm going to pretend that I am running out of budget at the moment and I will need to shut down this particular data node that is running in a public cloud. So what I will do is I'm going to remove the container. Okay, so we're going to have only the controller still running in public, and I will go and quickly go to this particular server which is running in my data center on premise, and what I will do is I'm going to join the Docker Swarm. I'm going to join the Docker cluster which is running in public cloud. So I will have one node running in public and one node running on premise. So we can see from here that I am trying to join as a worker. Let's take a look at the nodes, and hopefully we should be able to see that my worker node coming from this IP address from our data center that we call C3 is trying to join. It's completing the node registration at the moment. Let's just give it a few seconds and we should be able to see this node joining the Docker DC cluster. From here we can see that we lost the heartbeat for our data 1 because data 1 is already out of the public cloud, so we don't have this container running anymore. I'm not going to remove it from here. What I want to do is just continue with the onboarding of our on-premise machine, which is already up and running, and after this one is running, I will just quickly go and trigger a script that is going to join the mapper cluster by creating a container. Okay, so let's check if our new container is running. Is actually this one. Let's try to connect into that particular container. Okay, we will need to grab the ID, the container ID, and let's trigger a shell, a console. Okay, let's go and take a look at the logs. Okay, and we can see from here that it's already onboarding using our on-premise node. Okay, so from here we should be able to see that we are trying to connect to the controller. There are a few errors, but again we should be able to hit consistency soon. We have the IP address here for the controller. If we can see it, is 10092. Okay, and since I am inside our container, let's quickly take a look at the network inside the container, and we can see from here that this is what we use as the overlay network. If you remember, it's in the 10090 segment. So if I try to ping our controller, which is .2, I should be able to reach it, even though the controller is actually running on public cloud and my data node is running on premise. Okay, so we are already onboarded with this mapper on premise. If I go here, I should be able to see that mapper D2, which is my new member, is actually already part of the cluster. We can see that data 1 is down, data 2 is part of the cluster. And this is how we can actually achieve what we call hybrid cloud using Docker DC. Thank you for listening.